Hello. Hi, Zale. How are you?
Good on you.
Good, thank you. I'm just going to switch around because my backlight here. Can you see me? Cool.
I can see you now
Uh,
perfectly.
Thanks for being patient, man.
I'm
My
super patient.
apologies.
It's Friday afternoon.
My apologies to everyone that's been waiting. Zale, if I may share. So this week we started a campaign with a company called Stay on Telecom.
Hmm.
Um, they sell portable power devices, and that's what I've been running. I'm
Hmm.
waiting for mine, so we'll order some for the BrownSense team. So the irony is, I'm sitting here in the dark without a portable power device, whilst I've been busy making noise the whole week. Telling people about this awesome devices. Otherwise, I would have long started the stream. But thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
pleasure.
Welcome to the Brown Sense community. So I think for the benefit of everyone that's here, maybe just tell us, who Zale is, what's your background, and then we'll get into the meat of the matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mzuzukile, and hi everyone at the BrownSense community. It's great to be here. So I. It's funny enough. I never actually started out to be in technology and be an entrepreneur and in the wills and estate planning space. I originally studied, sports medicine, and then I worked in orthopedic sales for about 13 years. And I had two events that happened in my life that sort of changed the trajectory of my life, and sort of set me on this path, I suppose. And the first was, well, they happened close together, but my dad and my grandfather, they passed away within a month of each other. And being involved in the estates and dealing with the wills and so on, I just thought to myself, sure, there must be a way that we can use technology to make this all a whole lot easier and better. Seemed very sort of disjointed. No one knew what was going on. The family didn't know what to do, And we said, well, and that set me on the path. And we did our first iteration, which was like a security vault of information that people that were going to help wind up estates could use to quicken the process. And we ran that for about launched that in 2009. And back then in 2009, things like the cloud and things like you know storing your data online, and that was like a different language. No one knew what it was. So it was a great idea, but at the wrong time.
Mm.
And in 2018, we pivoted, and we launched Cliqtech. And the idea there was to say, look, let's use that information and let's see what we can do to actually empower people by having a world-class will that, because done online. We did a lot of research around it, and people all said, look, they would like to have a will. They all needed a will. Well, not everyone, but 95% of people. But if you ask them why they didn't have it, it was because they couldn't find the time. It wasn't accessible. There was affordability issues and so on. And by making it, as easy as just being on your phone and being able to do it anywhere at any time, it just took away the inefficiencies, in the system. And we launched our first product in that space called SmartWill, which is still live today, and that's a direct to the market. That's our sandbox. That's what we test, and we've got some great clients there. And then we also realized that what we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to take this technology and really scale it. And how we did that is we then said, okay, let's white label this, or how do we take this product and make sure any corporate, financial services industry, bank, brokerages, professionals can actually take this product and actually make sure that any one of their customers or their employees can actually access this and get a will in their hands. And then we launched the white label, and then we haven't looked back since, which is how we've partnered with Met GetUp, they're using their technology to create success, and the rest is history. So here we are.
Wow. So the concept of the smart wheel is I find that intriguing. So maybe if you can give us a picture what that looks like, right? So
Sure.
I'm someone that knows maybe one of, let me say, about three options.
Yes.
Without mentioning names, I can either go to a certain stationery shop,
Yes.
buy a wheel in a template with blank spaces and complete the blank spaces,
Mhm.
go to a bank or go to a lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. The what makes our smart tool smart is that it actually takes your current circumstances and actually molds the wool around that. And then intuitively, while you're busy completing the process, it starts looking for gaps in your estate planning.
Okay.
So what we do at Cliqtech is with three things that we focus on, and obviously this is all built into what we do within the technology. We want to make sure that there is economic inclusion. So a lot of people don't have access to a will, or they don't have access to
Mm.
fundamental advice. And a will really is the foundation of financial advice. So
Mm.
we make sure that it's accessible, but at the same time, what the system does is it makes sure that all the negative impacts of not having a will in place in society are taken care of, because from not having a will. So we make sure that we tackle that. We also then make sure we can identify risks in a person's financial planning and financial health. And we also make sure that we have a look and make sure that if there's any sort of like risks in terms of, if you're a business owner and,
Mm.
you have buy and sell agreements and, all of that. And the system and the data, such a data rich environment that we can identify
Yeah.
these risks and actually. So we're slowly building our dashboards that are sort of identifying risk and calculators that can do that.
I
And that's
see.
really what makes it smart. It's not just a case of
Yeah.
just getting a piece of paper and doing it. Getting a
Yeah.
will anyway is fine, but actually getting down to what is actually important to make sure that you're mitigating these risks. That's what we're about,
Mm.
and using the technology to do that.
Wow. So it sounds to me like, normally one would approach this as a standard approach, or more like a wholesale, one size fits all approach, where, regardless of age, regardless of where I am in my journey and so forth, I just think as long as I use, to use the stationary example,
Yeah.
and think that there might be specific circumstances in my life that might necessitate some kind of, bespoke will. That's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I would say the worst thing you can do is just go and get a template will, whether that's
Mm.
whether that's off a shelf at a store or just online. There's lots of free templates, because it's the parts that you don't know that actually create the risk. Like, for example, people don't realize that one of the big things we see is that what happens is you go and get the piece of paper, or you're working at home and you go and fill it out, right? And then you've got to sign
Mm.
it. And then you've got to sign it as the testator or the testatrix. So it's the testator is the male and testator is a female. But you've got to sign it, but then you've got to find a witness. So who's the first person you go to? You go to people in your house to go and, who's around
Mhm.
you. And often what happens is the people that are beneficiaries in the will are the people that witness. And as soon as they do that, they're exempt from being a beneficiary in the will.
Mm.
Like, now no one's going to tell you that if you go and buy it off the shelf, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's all of these nuances that happen in the background that people aren't aware of that
Mm.
result. It's a false sense of security. You think
Yeah.
you've done it, but you've only done it halfway. You haven't actually checked it out properly. You haven't had a
Yeah.
fiduciary expert who checks it. So every person that finishes on our environment, it breaks out to a person that will actually check your will, engage with you, sign it off, and then you can sign it.
Mm. Now, when it comes to the different role players in a will, so you've touched on the witnesses.
Mhm.
We also have a character called an executor.
We
Um,
do.
what in your experience, what would you suggest or advise, in selecting an executor? One would think it must be, let's
Yeah.
say, someone within the family or whatever. What do you recommend, or what is best practice?
Gosh, you've gone straight to a big topic here. so let's so let's this I can talk for a long time on this. So let me just break it down. So first of all, what is an executor for those of us that don't know what an executor is, right? So an executor is somebody that has been trained and has the experience to wind up a deceased estate, right? So what happens is you do your will and then you appoint an executor. When you die, the executor has to go to the master of the high court and say, I've been appointed on the will as the executor. I fill out the forms. You appoint me as the executor to wind up this deceased estate. Okay. Now, there's two different types of deceased estates. Okay. There's the what we call an 18.3 deceased estate, which is smaller than 250,000 rand in assets. Okay. That's fundamentally a paperwork exercise. So the courts aren't too afraid to appoint somebody that doesn't necessarily, isn't a bank or a professional service or a company or whatever it is as the executor to wind up those estates, because it's quite easy. It's a step, it's a step by step. As long as the person that's there can write and can read properly, they can probably put it together themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that one's okay. The problem comes is when you have to do anything over 250,000. Okay. Now there is a legal requirement to be able to wind up the deceased estate a certain way. Okay. That should you not actually wind it up a certain way, you could actually face prosecution and even jail time if you don't do it properly. Okay. So the master of the high court is obliged to make sure that whoever is going to be appointed as the executor has the necessary skill set to act as the executor, because of the unfavorable consequences if you do it wrong. Okay. So what ends up happening in reality is there's this big debate about who do I appoint as the executor on my will. Now, some people will say, look, I want to appoint my wife, or I want to appoint my brother or a family friend. That's fine. Okay. Invariably, what ends up happening is if they don't have the necessary skill, or they go start looking into it when they actually have to, the person passes on and they have to go and wind up the estate, they realize, I don't actually have a clue what this is about. Not only that, but I don't know where to start. I don't know who the people are to go and see at the master's court. It's a huge exercise. And who's got the time for that, right? I mean, this is a massive, 6 to 12 month undertaking with full liquidation and distribution accounts. You need to be an accountant to pretty much put these things together. So what ends up happening is even the person that's appointed as the executive, if it's a friend or a spouse, ends up going to professional services like a bank or an attorney's firm, whatever it is, and they end up appointing that attorney's firm as the is what they call an agent.
Okay.
And the agent acts on behalf of the appointed executor, which is the spouse, let's say, and they end up running through and actually doing the whole winding up of the estate and getting paid for that. And there's normally a fee that can be negotiated, but the fee is at the moment is 3.5%. That's ex-VAT, and that's total value of your assets. That's excluding like your life insurance and things like that. That's not included. It's just like actual assets. And but that's by law, it can't be higher than that.
Yeah.
And they will then that agent will still pay is still going to be charging that, and the family's going to have to pay that and have the liquidity to cover that expense. That's what 99% of the time happens if you've appointed somebody else to do it. The other option is to actually just go straight and put a professional executor on the will, and then you can decide who that executor is. You could even pre-negotiate the fees up front. And then you know that that whole hassle is taken out of the picture, and they just know exactly what to do, and they can crack on and do it. And if you're working on our system, we already know all the important parts that are needed to wind up the estate, so that it goes a lot
Yeah.
faster. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I would say always try and find, if you can, find a professional executor on your will. Find a firm or lawyer that you trust, or whoever it is, and
Yeah.
and pre-negotiate some a fee. That's definitely the cleanest way to do it. They're going to end up going to the same people anyway.
Yeah. Hmm. That makes sense. It makes sense. So tell me, I'm 20 years old, right? And I haven't started working, or I'm starting my first job.
Yes.
Not a lot of assets. Is it a good time for me to have a will, or must I wait until much later in life when I've acquired assets?
So yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think for many people, even not in their 20s, 30s, 40s, it's a will's almost seen like something that old people do, because they're close to death, and then you get their affairs in
Yeah.
order and all their assets in place. Now, if you ask me who should have a will, everyone should have a will in place. But
Mm.
for someone as young, what you're not considering is it's more about circumstances, not so
Yeah.
much about age. And it's not even so much about assets. Assets is one part of why you need a will, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you some scenarios. So, if you're married, you should definitely have a will in place. Now, you could be 21 and be married,
Mm.
right? So, there's a scenario that you're young, you should have a will. The second one is, do you have any children? Now, there's many people in their 20s that have got children.
Mm.
Okay. Why is it important if you've got children? Well, people don't know this, but if you die without a will and you've got children and there's no clear person that's been indicated in the will as a guardian for your child, right? The state actually has the authority to
Mm.
appoint who the guardian of that child will be.
Mm.
So by not having a will in place, you give up
Yeah.
the ability for you to stipulate who you would like or want to look after your child should you die. All right. Particularly
Mm.
important if you're a single parent, because because the likelihood of two parents dying at the same time is small, but it does happen. And if that should happen, you lose all control of that. So again, it's about circumstances. If you've got children, absolutely you need a will. You need to think about appointing guardians for that. And also, what's clever is in a will for the children is that it sets up a testamentary trust. Now, there's different types of trust, but this is a trust after death. And what
Yeah.
that trust will do is it will take the money you have and ring fence that with trustees so that there's no one that can go and take that money away from your children,
Mm.
and make sure that that money is available for their school fees or whatever it may be, that there's money available for them that's independent. So that, and we all know the horror stories of people dying and then the money goes disappearing and the cars get sold and
Mm. Mm. Mm.
takes away all of that. And by having a professional executive, always make sure that that doesn't happen either. Well, it doesn't, well, less likely of happening, let's put it that way. So there's another one, okay? So you have children. That's an important one. Now, the one that everyone forgets is, how can you make sure that the way that you want to be buried, right, is absolutely done according to your wishes?
Mm.
Well, you stipulate it exactly in the will. You can say
Sure.
if you're going to be buried. You can say if you want to be cremated. You can say if you want to be an organ donor. You can stipulate exactly how you want to be buried, what needs to be done, what coffin you want, what food needs to be there, where you want to do it, where do you want to put your ashes. And
Sure.
at the
Yeah.
very least, doesn't matter what age you are, if something happens, at least you can have control of what's done with your mortal remains after you die,
Yeah.
and what happens at your funeral. There's just three examples of, and even if you have let's say you've inherited something that is a family heirloom, or
Mm.
something that you precious that you would like to leave to a brother, a sibling, or a niece or a nephew, you can specify that in a will. I want this watch. I would like this, painting, whatever it is, to
mm,
go to this person. So, I mean, there's four reasons right there. If you are younger, to make sure you have a will. And also, a will is, you've got to see it as a living document. It's not like you do it once and you never touch it again. It's like on our
yeah,
system, you're coming on every year and you're updating it. So it starts with
mm,
just how you want to be buried. Then you got a car, or there's an asset. Who's going to get that if you die? And then you have
mm,
children, and who's going to them? And you're coming on and you're updating the whole time. And that
yeah,
becomes, the living document that you
yeah,
keep going.
yeah. Wow, that's really powerful. It's really powerful. So when it comes, and I think maybe this is a good time to segue into this conversation. So with regards to Cliqtech's relationship and Met GetUp, right?
Yes.
Can you give us a picture of what that about? What is the value? If there's any value-added services, benefits, and so forth.
Yeah, so we started speaking with Met GetUp a while ago. We've been live with them in terms of a will service for their customers for over a year now. And the beauty is that they've got the infrastructure to communicate these sort of things, and being on a forum like this, to
Mm,
people. I think it's the awareness side, but there's also the benefits with being a Met GetUp customer, where you can actually get rebates by doing, something like your will, actually off your premiums, which I
yeah,
really think that's just such a brilliant idea. It's sort of like getting your house in order with different, mechanisms and interventions. We're involved on the will side, but you get these rebates that come through every year in January,
mm,
and I think it's what sort of incentivizes you to do something you should be doing anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Um, we've got a really great partnership with them. We work very closely, and we're
Sure.
working on some new exciting things in the future also.
Awesome, awesome. Are you at liberty to share what those things are?
I can't yet
Yeah,
because it's still very hush hush and confidential.
yeah.
But hopefully in the first quarter next year we start seeing what that is.
Awesome. I think lastly, before we part ways, if anyone wants to read up more about Cliqtech, and maybe for the viewers' benefit, that is CLIQTECH.
CLIQECH. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do we go to? How do we find you?
Absolutely. You can just go to Cliqtech, CLIQTECH dot COZA, and you can find all about what we do there. And if
Yeah,
you need a will and you need it quick and you want to do it at 8 o'clock tonight, no problem. You can just go to smartwill.co.za and sign up. Finish your will in
nice,
7 days and get it free.
awesome, awesome. Thanks very much. No relations to Zale Hechter, right?
No, I wish. I wish.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your Friday and your
Thank,
weekend as well. Thanks to everyone that joined us today.
thank you so much. Great being here. You too.
Cheers. Thanks, bye.
Just bye bye.
Thank you, guys. It's the weekend, baby. Be safe, guys.